So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming to City Hall this afternoon. I'm Mayor Rick Goldring. With me is our General Manager of Development Infrastructure, Scott Stewart, who's been heading up the operation from a city operational point of view. As you know, we were hit with significant rainfall last night. Well, we had, to set the context, we had about 2 months of rainfall within about a 3 or 4 hour period. There was a storm cell that went from basically northwest Burlington to southeast Burlington. The area, I would suggest, east of Guelph Line has been hit harder. There's been some damage just south of Upper Middle Road. There's been some damage certainly in the southern part of the city, around New Street. It's been very, very significant. I want to let you know that this is both a City of Burlington issue as well as a Halton Region issue, and we are working very, very hard together to do the best we can in reaching out to citizens and responding accordingly. We're encouraging our residents to call 311, especially if they have an issue around sanitary sewer backup, because there are a number of homes that have cross connections where the sanitary sewer can be backed up as a result of stormwater infiltration. The city has been assessing the damage across the city and will report back. The focus initially has been on some roads. There's certainly an issue on Guelph Line north of Dundas, and an issue on Cedar Springs north of Dundas as well. The issue on Guelph Line will take maybe a week to fix, we understand, but that's preliminary at this stage. We're also looking at the damage around our creeks. Obviously our creeks are a big tool as far as dealing with stormwater management, so our Capital Works Department is out looking at all the creeks, as well as our Roads and Parks Maintenance Department is looking at the parks within the city, not just the roads. We expect that most of our parks will be operational tonight, some may not. So we've been looking at the damage to the bridges and parks, as well as cleaning up the roads and trees and debris. I encourage people to check the city's website at burlington.ca for information, as well as the Halton Region website at halton.ca. And we obviously will provide additional updates as they are available, primarily on the website, but also through our media department here at the city. So Scott, did you want to add into that?
I'll just add that we'll continue to look for residents to give us updates through the 311. So if there's things that their eyes are they're out or we're not in all the locations, we're certainly doing the assessment along all of our creeks and parks and those sort of things where you would expect us to be. Early this morning we've been out and about and doing that, and we'll have a further, we just finished our EOC now, and we'll have a further operational meeting this afternoon on just what we're hearing and what we're seeing out there. But if the residents call in at 311, those calls are being triaged, if you will, to, as the mayor has mentioned, the sewage in the basement, to other things, overland flow routes, and anything that we're seeing out in the road line. So we would certainly encourage the residents to make sure they're in contact with us. We've confirmed the issue with Union Gas in the northern part of the city is now behind us. That's been corrected. And at this point so far, we've only had one home in the entire city that's been shut down with concerns over hydro and I'll say water sewage in the basement and the concerns that might happen there. So there's only been one, and then whatever our number is, about 120,000 households. So those are good news within all of that. And that's all I update at this point.
So I just want to say, for those who didn't know, my own basement was flooded very, very severely. My street looks like a bit of a war zone. There's dumpsters in people's driveways, and stuff is being pitched out of the basements. So I empathize greatly with the people who have their basements flooded. I've lived in my home for 20 years. It's the first time we've had water in our basement. I do want to share, though, a particular concern I have and a great empathy for those people that have flooded more than once, and some homeowners of the city have been flooded more than once this year. And for that we have great concern, and in due course we'll be getting reports from the region as well as the city about a review of exactly what happened and how our stormwater system dealt with the water, and the same thing with the sanitary sewer issue as well. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, have you got an overall assessment of the number of houses damaged, the number of streets, or can you say how long it will take to get that assessment?
So I can tell you this, that last night at 311, which is the Halton Emergency Call Center, there were over 2,200 calls last night. They weren't all basements. A lot of them was because of the roads and the fact that some roads were impassable last night. We understand that from Halton 311, about 230 to 240 homeowners called about specifically basement flooding. And I would suggest that's only a percentage of the basements that have been flooded in the city. I don't think I'd be out of line if I said there was well over 500 basements that were flooded across the city last night.
Any way of putting a dollar figure on it?
Not at this stage. I'm very, very preliminary to do that.
Some people are saying this is the worst flooding we've seen in 10, 20 years. Do you remember flooding this bad in the past?
So I believe it is the worst flooding that we've seen in Burlington in 20 years. Certainly when it's your basement, you think it is, that's for sure. As I mentioned, I've lived in my home for 20 years, never had an issue. I talked to a neighbor in my street this morning, lived in the home for 38 years, and we've never had an issue. But you really have to put into context. You have 2 months worth of rain within 3 hours. There's going to be effects that are negative, absolutely. So that's the big issue, is that we had this big cell. I'm also wondering about the impact of all the tremendous amount of rainfall we've had throughout the year. I know that some of our creeks were brimming right to the top even before this rainfall. So it'll be interesting to get analysis from our folks here at the city and the region as to the conditions that contributed to this.
And any further concerns about weather today?
I haven't heard about the weather today. We've been focusing on the ground. I don't believe, where's Matt Hayes? I don't see him. I haven't heard about any particular weather concerns today.
Is it difficult to take care of the city's business when your own home was actually quite severely damaged as well?
I did some media interviews this morning. I went home and I was helping my wife go through some of our photographs and personal effects that we're throwing into a dumpster. And then I had to come here. So, no, it's been normal. I wouldn't say normal, but no, you have to do what you have to do. So.
Are there any roads or areas that are still sort of, hard to get to because of the weather, or has everything receded back to normal?
My understanding is the biggest issue we have right now is Guelph north of Dundas. There's been some severe erosion and decay of the road, and it leaves a lot of that road, or at least half the road, impassable. So our roads and parks maintenance folks are there now, trying to figure out how they can address that as soon as possible. That's the biggest issue, I understand. I also understand that there's an issue on Plains Road in between Brant Street and Guelph Line.
And what about contamination in the water?
Well, there's obviously a concern about contamination in the water, and we're concerned about some elderly residents who have been flooded more than once this year, who could be affected negatively from a health point of view, and we're concerned about that.
What was the damage on Cedar Springs that you had?
So Cedar Springs, there's a significant amount of volume of rain in the rural area of Burlington, and it simply created, from what I understand, a fast-flowing creek that was flowing over the road. I understand it's still passable if it went very, very slowly. I'm not sure what the long-term prognosis is for that area.
Cedar Springs obviously affected by the ice storm.
Yes.
Months ago, everybody's here for that. What is the effect of the city now? Cedar Springs being affected by the floods?
That'll be very, very interesting. I mean, we'll have to wait for our staff to do the complete assessment of the rural area and the impact of not just an ice storm, but now a significant rainstorm.
So in your view, this was just sort of a natural anomaly, and do you think that there's anything that needs to be looked at in terms of infrastructure issues as well? Because there are more people living in certain areas perhaps now than there were before?
I think that's preliminary right now. I think really setting the context is that, as I mentioned several times, that we've had all this rainfall over a 2 or 3 hour period. We had record rainfall in that short period of time. I believe that's the most significant contributing factor to what happened. I'm not sure if there's any other contributing factors, and I want to get an analysis from our engineering or capital works folks in the fall that can analyze what happened and see if there's anything we can do to prevent this type of thing from happening in the future, recognizing that there was extreme circumstances yesterday.
Greg, we just took a look on Tuck Creek. The river banks are badly eroded. There's some 100-foot ancient trees look like they're ready to topple. Is that the Burlington's or Halton's issue?
That's a Burlington issue. Yeah, all the stormwater management and our creeks, which are part of that stormwater system, is the city of Burlington. So that's some of the assessment work that is going on right now.
Your neighbors said that Tuck Creek overflowed quite quickly, and they said they've been concerned about it for a while. Have you heard problems with it before?
I haven't heard specific problems of Tuck Creek before, but obviously stormwater management is a big part of our capital budget every year, and our staff is always analyzing what we need to do and the action we need to take. And I believe we've done the best we can addressing what needs to be done so far. But as I mentioned, we're going to get some analysis back in the fall and see if there's anything else we should be doing.
Is there any opportunity to access provincial disaster relief money, or is it not bad to that extent?
My preliminary view is I don't think it's that bad at this stage. We'll do the assessment, but I think this will, just thinking off the top of my head, and Scott jump in here to help me if I'm going somewhere I should, but I think of the damage that we had as the ice storm, we were able to quantify that, and we do have a request into the province, and we'll hopefully get some money. This, I do not believe will come to that type of quantum number, but it's still early. We're just starting the assessment process, and that's why I'm asking Scott to correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Now I know also.
He's bang on that one, and we're going to keep the door open with the province. It's a high threshold, both from a damage perspective and a fiscal perspective. But we haven't said that we're not going to apply, but we'll assess it over the next coming weeks. There's certainly things we have to fix now or respond to, and then we'll track that on our fiscal accounts, and then we'll have a chat with the province, and does it meet some of those thresholds.
Thank you, Mayor. Can take one more question. He has a commitment.
I do, actually.
Scott, there was some talk of the stormwater and sewage drains being crossed somehow. Is that a physical thing or just the overload?
So I think if you can picture some homes, your downspouts are connected into the sanitary system, and some homes are not. So one of the things that we'll work with on the region is could there be a more aggressive disconnection program? But that can't just be done. It's not as simple as you just make that disconnect happen, because if that discharge is now into your swales or onto your property, all you've done is you've moved it now from one, you've maybe fixed one problem and moved it out to overland flow. So we're working with the region on that so that we can take a look at it. But really that's as simple as the picture your own home and where those downspouts come down, some discharge right on into the ground, and the others that you don't see discharging are connected into a sanitary system, and that volume then that's what starts to create some of the problems in the sanitary system.
The bylaw in most municipalities where you're not supposed to have a downspout into the storm, is that here too?
We have, like most municipalities, we have bylaws like that, and then what you have is a bit of grandfathering over time as well. So you have some older areas, so the standards in 1940 are different than they are in 2014. So we don't connect downspouts today, but they are connected in some areas of the city, and we're going to do that assessment the Mayor talked about to see if that's one of those contributing factors over and above a massive cell over the top of Burlington yesterday for a long time.
Great, thank you.